Yes, good afternoon to all. I request the sixth batch to continue the presentation with the multi robots and machine interference. Yes, Kripa Sagar, go ahead with your presentation.
Sir, is this slide visible, sir? Hello?
Yes, Keshav, it is.
Okay.
Keshav, you can start the first presentation.
PPT is not visible, Keshav.
Is it visible now?
Yes, yes.
Yes, it is. Sir, can we start?
Yes, yes, Kumar Ritik.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I am Kumar Ritik, and today I, along with my teammates, will be presenting on the topic multiple robots and machine interference. Keshav, you can move to the next slide. So last class, the other group, set of friends, they gave us a very clear idea about various robo cell layouts. In some robot cells, more than one robot is required to perform the operation. For example, inline robot cell, which you might have heard yesterday. Whereas in other cases, one robot will work with more than one machine in the cell. For example, mobile robot cells or robot-centered cells. What is common in both these cases is that care must be taken that the two pieces of equipment do not interfere with one another. When they interfere with one another, such a situation is called interference. So basically, what we define interference is the normal way of operations of robots that can conflict each other at different levels. We have divided interference into two types. One is physical interference and the other is machine or task interference. Physical interference comprises of competition for physical resources like space, objects, positions, etc. Whereas task interference comprises of competition for task resources like objects, competition for winning resources like goals, pieces, etc. Next slide, please. Physical interference involves physical interference of the robots where the work volumes of the two robots in the cell overlap with each other, posing dangers of collision. This is most easily prevented by separating the robots by an adequate distance to avoid the problem. What happens in some of the cases is that multiple robots are working on the same workpiece. As such, an alternative approach is to coordinate the programmed motion cycles of the two robots as the arms never get close enough to risk a collision. Next slide. The second type is machine interference, and this occurs when two or more machines are being serviced by one robot. This does not include an involvement of a human. The machine cycles are timed in such a way that the idle time is experienced by one or more machines while one machine is being serviced by the robot and is most commonly expressed as a percent. Next slide. So what is the basic difference between machine interference with humans and machine interference with robots? In case of humans, the machine interference gets affected by the worker's cycle times and worker's level of effort. Whereas in the case of robots, robot cycle time will remain unaffected by the effort level. And in case of humans, with greater variation in cycle time and lower effort level, the machine interference will tend to be greater. Whereas in case of robots, the amount of cycle time variation will be significantly less than for human work. Next. So basically, machine interference can be defined as a total idle time of all the machines in the cell as compared to the robot cycle time. To give you a more clear idea and illustrate this with the help of an example, I would like to ask my friend Yashashvi to carry the presentation further. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yashasvi. Now I'm going to explain you a simple example of machine interference. Here is an example. A 3 machine cell in which a robot is used to load and unload the machines. Each of the 3 machines are identical with identical cycles times of 50 seconds. This cycle time is divided between run time 30 seconds and the service time by the robot 20 seconds. From the definition of machine interference is the ratio of total idle time of all the machine cells to robot cycle time. So we need to find the idle time of each machine and the robot cycle time. Mathematically, we can say service time multiplied by total number of machines gives the robot cycle time. Next slide, please. Yes, from this robot and machine process chart, we can see that robot cycle time will be 60 seconds because load 1, 2 and 3 are repeating for every 60 seconds. From the formula also we will get the same time, that is we are having 3 machines which are identical. So 3 multiplied by service time of each machine is 20 seconds. So 3 into 20 seconds will give 60 seconds, which is robot cycle time. And if you consider first machine, for first 20 seconds, it is loaded by the robot. And then next 30 seconds, it will doing its work. But it won't be loaded immediately by the robot after that 50 seconds. Since the robot is loading the machine 3 at the time. So it should wait for next 10 seconds to be loaded by the robot. So the machine 1 will be idle for the 10 seconds. So machine 1 idle time will be 10 seconds. Similarly for other 2 machines, machine 2 and machine 3, as they are having the same identical time. So from this, total idle time of the 3 machines will be 3 times of 10 seconds, that is 30 seconds. In case the service time and the run times of the machines are different, the above relationships become complicated by the problem of determining the best sequence of servicing times for the machines into robot cycle times. Next slide, please. Yeah. Therefore, from this definition of machine interference, it will be equal to 30 seconds divided by 60 seconds, which is 1/2. As usually we express machine interference in percentage, it is equal to 50%. That is, all the machines together will be idle for 50% of the robot cycle time for each cycle. Next slide, please. Yeah. If the robot cycle time is greater than the machine cycle time, there will be resulting machine interference, which we saw in the previous example. But if the machine cycle time is greater than the robot cycle time, there will be no machine interference because the value of idle time will be negative for machine. So it is impossible to have mission interference, but the robot will be ideal for part of the cycle. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Yashasvi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mahetva Agarwal, and I'll be presenting about multiple robots. When we operate 2 or more robots from a single point of control simultaneously, we call them as multiple robots. Next slide. Now we'll talk about multiple robots in a single process. As we know, while doing a task, more the number of people we have, more is the productivity. Same goes with robots. Multiple robots can increase productivity in work cells in which 2 or more robots perform the same process. Example, welding, material handling, etc. Adding extra robot arms to a work cell can double, triple, or even quadruple the productivity. Here, given below is an example where robot 1 and 2 weld on the left side of a large vehicle frame component, while robot 3 and 4 weld the right side. All this motion is synchronized. Next slide. Next slide, Keshav. Yeah. Now we have some list of features that a good multi-robot system must have. Firstly, it should be robust. That is, it should not have any point of failure. Second, it should be optimized even in dynamic conditions. Then it should be quick to respond to changes. It should be able to deal with imperfect communication, able to allocate limited resources, and heterogeneous and able to make use of different robotic skills. Next slide. Now let's discuss about some positive and negative aspects of teaming of robots. First, let's talk about positive points. It gives improved system performance, then better task enablement, distributed sensing, distributed action at a distance, and fault tolerance. Now, coming to negative aspects, it has interference, communication cost increases, and robustness is an issue. Overall, system cost increases. Next slide. Next slide, Keshav. Keshav.
Yes, Agarwal, what happened?
The next slide.
Yes, Kesav Prasad, go ahead with the presentation. Kesav.
Keshav, please change the slide.
Sorry, 1 second. This slide.
Next. Yeah. Now, when multiple robots work closely together in a small space, avoiding collision becomes a major challenge. So how to avoid it? However, with a multiple robot controller, the program creates the program for up to 4 robots, either via offline programming functions or using a programming pendant. Programming is simplified and programming time is reduced through built-in collision avoidance software. Because there is only one controller for several robots, networks, personal computers, or even external drives such as floppy disk drives are not needed for program transfer. Next. Now let's talk about some applications. Many real-world applications can potentially benefit from the use of multiple mobile robot systems. application includes container management in ports, extraplanetary exploration, search and rescue, mineral mining, transportation, industrial and household maintenance, construction, waste cleanup, security, agriculture, and warehouse management, and the list goes on. Multiple robot systems can also be used in the domain of localization, mapping, and exploration. Thank you. That's it from my side. Now, my friend Kiruba will take over.
Thank you, Mahatma. I am Kiribos Sagar. I am going to present the two robot interference in single work cell. Next slide. Yeah, now we will see what is a work cell. A work cell is an arrangement of resources in a manufacturing environment to improve quality, speed, and cost of the process. Work cells are designed to improve this by improving process flow and eliminating waste. Next slide. Now let's see what is the robot interference. In some robot cells, there will be more than one robot required to perform the application. The inline robot is the common example of this case. In inline robot cell, one or more robots located in line conveyor. Work is organized so each robot performs assembly operation on each part. Example, welding line. Next slide. In other cases, one robot will work with more than one machine in the cell. Either the robot-centered cell or mobile robot cell are illustrative of this possibility. In either of these cases, either of these situations, care must be taken to ensure that the different pieces of the equipment do not interfere with one another. There are two ways in which this can occur: two robot interference in single work cell and two or more robot interference in single work cell. Next slide. Yeah. Two robot interference in single work cell. This case involves physical interference of the robot where the work volumes of the two robots in the cell overlap each other. In this situation, the danger of collision exists between the robot arms. This is most easily prevented by separating the robot by an adequate distance to avoid the problem. However, there are some applications in which it is desirable for two robots to share the same space. Next slide. An example would be where one robot places a work part at a certain location and the second robot picks the part up. The location must be in the work envelope of the both robots. Accordingly, an alternative approach is to coordinate the programmed motion cycles of the two robots so that the arms are never close enough to risk a collision. Now, my friend Kumaraja will continue the presentation with the topic two or more robots in two or more robot interference in single work cell. Thank you.
Good afternoon, this is Kumara Raja, and as Kriba explained before, there are two types of interference. One is two robot interference and two or more robot interference. And here we'll be looking at two or more robot interference. Keshav, next slide. So this type of interference occurs when there are multiple machines being serviced by two or more robots within the same workspace, and the machine cycles. Next slide, Keshav. And the machine cycles are timed in such a way that the idle time is experienced by one or more machines while another machine is being serviced by a robot. So this type of interference bears a high risk of collision, and it may bring about even greater destruction than two robots interference, as there are more than two robots involved and may lead to damages beyond repair. Next slide, Keshav. So two or more robot interference also has a few applications where complicated designs and structures that require precise and accurate operating are carried out simultaneously by multiple robots effectively. Okay, so next slide. So this type of interference is also in association with machine interference, and it is a common problem encountered when a human worker is assigned to service multiple machines. And machine interference can be measured as a total idle time of all machines in the cell as compared to the operator or robot cycle time. The measure is most commonly expressed as a percentage. Next up, Kishore will be explaining about sequence control. Thank you.
Yes, so myself. Hello. Yeah. Yes, so myself, Kishore, I'll be speaking about sequence control in robot cells. Next slide, please, Keshav. Yeah. First of all, no, Keshav. Before this slide will be there, I guess. Go for next.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, first of all, before going to sequence control, know about what is work cell control. So basically, what our friends explained is that coordination of robots inside the work cell. Basically, what it happens inside the work cell. So like, so a process to be carried out inside a work cell, it should be in a sequential. It should be in an ordered manner such that no robot should be interacting. Like any like in case of any interaction or any case of like clashes between the robots. So these can be controlled by controlled by work cell.
Kishore, what was the waviness in the presentation? It was scanned from the textbook. Whether the textbook has such a waviness?
No, sir. Like I have misplaced the slides.
Oh,
Like
yes.
I have.
Oh, in such a way. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
So yeah,
No,
so work cell coordination, work cell control can be done like it has three categories: sequence control, operator interface, and safety monitoring. So what I'll be explaining is the sequence control. So yeah, okay, so the previous slide. So yeah, first of all, a sequence control is a work cell control in which make sure various control cycle begins at the required time and performs the various functions and like in a organized and sequence manner. Oh shit. Okay, so it's the last slide. It's not the first slide. Yeah, sorry. So this includes the following kind of things. What it does is first it controls the sequence of activities inside the cell and controls the simultaneous activity. So like whenever they take it in a work cell, process will be happening continuously and as well as simultaneously also in a sequential order. So it makes sure that this happens, and it also makes decisions to whether to proceed to the work cycle based on the events that occur in the cell, or it also takes the decisions to stop or delay a work cycle such that it should make sure whether the previously done doing operation is completed or not, so that it should be in a sequential order so that nothing would interact with each other. So yeah, next slide. Yeah, so we'll explain with the example. So what sequential control will be doing? Take an example for a robot having a robot is performing a machining tool, like a machining operation, which is taking a work part from input conveyor and placing it in the fixture in the machine tool. Then after the machining is done, it's like taking back to the output conveyor. So how this does in like sequential control is that first the robot picks the part from the conveyor and delivers it in the fixture in the machine tool. So at this time of during this time of operation, like from the robot taking it from the input conveyor and placing it in the machine tool, at that particular time the machine tool will be idle. So yeah, machine tool will be idle. And next step is that it loads the fixture. Then after loading the work part into the fixture, the machine tool performs the machining cycle. At this time, the robot will be idle, like it won't be doing any operation. And next step is that after the machine tool completes its operation, the robot unloads the workpiece from the fixture in the machine tool and places it back in the output conveyor. At this time, the machine tool will be idle. So so at particular point of time, a sequential operation is done, but at the same time, like we can observe many places where the robot or the machine were idle. So this leads to a machine interference. So yeah, this could be like complicated much by having two gripper, double gripper type. Next slide, Keshav. Keshav, next slide.
Yeah, I have changed it. Is it visible?
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, basically the workstation control is that it makes sure the activities occur in a sequential order. for example, like if you take an automation cycle, must occur until the robot has loaded the part. So the machine tool has to wait until the part is being like loaded in the machine fixture. So this is how it happens in a sequence order. So by having like as we observed, there are many places where machine or the tool was idle. So like it could be overcome by using a multiple gripper, like having a double gripper. So what this does is like double gripper has like which has two grasping mechanism independently holding hands or what work part. So like what it does is it can handle two work parts at the same time. So like it makes the things a bit complicated. So next question.
Is visible?
No. Yeah. So what this does is it allows the like automatic machining cycle to occur at the same time with the robot was performing the portion of its motion. So like as we say, consider the previous example itself. Like if we have a multiple robot, like multiple hands, like in case of two gripper, first at the start of thing, first the first gripper will take the work part and fix it in the fixture in the machine tool. At this time, machine tool will be idle. Yeah, then after that the first part will be taking another workpiece, and at this time the machine tool will be performing its operation, and at the same time after the machine tool like completes its job, the second gripper will take the finished work part and places in the output conveyor, whereas the first gripper will takes the like part from the input in conveyor to and places in the machine tool. So by having this multiple gripper at this time, like the idle time of the robot is being reduced, and machine time, like machine what is it, milling machine also has been reduced. So yeah, next one, next slide. So yeah, the feature like having multiple hand, like it uses like double gripper use like workstation can be organized so that machine is processing the part at the same time the robot is performing much of its work. So as this reduces the production cycle time, and like yeah, that's like a great advantage in engineering industry. Like time is equal to cost. So that's what. So but it has the apparent effect of increasing complexity of the control functions as having two grippers at the same time. So yeah, the function of a work cell control is to make sure that various control cycles begin at the same time and requires at the required time. So like our work cell controls operation time for particular machines, like whether which should start first and which should wait until the second one, like first one completes its task. So this has to be done. For this has to be done, the workstation must be capable of communicating back and forth from the various like cells of the work cell, various equipments in the work cell. So these signals must be sent from the work cell to the controllers to various components of the cell, and other signals must be received from the components of the work cell. So these signals are called as interlocks, which will be discussed later. So yeah, what work cell control does others also is that it includes performing computations and dealing with exceptional events such as equipment breakdowns and all, and performs irregular cycles such as tool changing and at periodic intervals. So this is what work cell does, and this is how it maintains a sequential order and simultaneous activities. Yeah. So next, my friend Keshav Prasad will be discussing about operator interface.
Is it audible? Is it audible? Hello.
Yeah, Keshav. Go.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Keshav, and I'm going to present the topic operator interface. Like operator interface is one of the three main categories of the work cell controller. The other two main categories are sequence control and safety monitoring, which was told earlier. And now, what is an operator interface, and what are its main functions actually? Okay, basically an operator interface provides a means of interaction between the human workers and the work cell operation. That is, it basically acts like a bridge for communication between the human operator and the work cell. There are many situations which require an operator interface, and some notable situations are like some notable situations are a human is basically an integral part of the work cell, and for emergency, the second situation is the emergency stop condition situations, and the third situation is for data input and program editing. Okay, let me explain about all these three situations. The first situation here is where the human worker plays an integral role in the operation of the cell. That is, the human performs a portion of the work cycle and the robot performs some portion of the work cycle. Here in this situation, there is a need to allow for the variations in the time required by the operator for doing the manual part of the cycle. Only after his completion of manual work, the robot can begin to work for its cycle. This is done easily in a robotic cell by means of start-stop controls that are placed conveniently as per the operator needs. The operator basically then makes use of these controls to regulate the robot cycle and then perform the required operations for the situation, and he can also use them to stop whenever the operations are not performed. Okay, now let's go to the second situation. The second situation involves an emergency in which a human worker needs to prevent the continued operation of the robot cycle whenever there are some problems. The main reason for the emergency may be a safety issue or an irregularity that took place in the work cycle, that is that is potentially destructive to the robot or other equipment of the robot cell. A safety problem basically arises when some person walks through the plant, has intruded into the robot's workspace causing some irregularities, or like an irregular event in the work cycle may occur when a robot had grasped the work part improperly for loading into the machine, and this would result in a machine damage or the damage of associated tools during the process. In these cases, the human worker present in the cell would be able to interrupt the operation of the robot cycle and prevent the situation from any further issues or problems. The third situation.
Yes, sir, Prasad.
Yes, sir.
Is from whose end it was the presentation?
I am presenting, sir. Is it visible?
You are presenting.
Yes, sir.
Earlier it was?
Earlier it was Kishore, sir.
Kishore.
Yes, sir. Kishore.
Sequential control and all presented by Kishore.
Yes,
Number
sir.
56 Kishore.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, go ahead. Keshav, sir.
Okay, sir. Now let me explain about the third situation where one would need an operator interface for editing the program or to give some input functions to the robot. Some robot controllers can be used for programming only when the robot is not operating. That is only during that mode changes to the program can be made by the program. That is when the robot is not functioning, only that time the program can be edited or changed. But the latest controllers are highly flexible such that they allow the programmer to edit the program during the operation of the robot. That is the program can be edited even when the robot performs its regular cycle. These are some of the main situations where an operator interface is highly required. So to end my presentation, I would like to say that in a robot workspace, the human operators will have various works to be done along the robot, and they can protect themselves from the physical damages using the controllers which is provided to them. And I would like to hand over the presentation to the next member.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Maharajan, here to give you insights on safety aspects regarding workplace robotics. Human lives are precious. Any injury to a worker in the workplace is seriously viewed. It also poses a threat to the other workers and also to the organization. It is important to maintain safety precautions. We'll be pondering upon the aspects of safety involving robots in workplace in the following slides. These safety concerns play a major role in designing the workplace. Next slide, please. Many workplace robots are industrial robots used in manufacturing. According to the International Federation of Robotics, 2 to 2.5 million new robots are expected to be used in factories between 2021 to 2025 due to the COVID pandemic and less manpower that is expected from the factories. So I've defined the workplace robotic safety in this slide. That is an aspect of occupational safety and health when robots are used in the workplace. This includes traditional industrial robots as well as emerging technologies such as drones, aircrafts, and wearable robotic exoskeletons. And the advances in automation technologies, which I've mentioned now, have the potential to improve work conditions, but also to introduce workplace hazards in manufacturing workplaces. 56% of the robot injuries are classified as pinch injuries, and 44% of the injuries are classified as impact injuries. A 1987 study found that line workers are at the greatest risk, followed by maintenance and programmers. Poor workplace design and human error cause most injuries. The type of accidents include collisions, crushing, and injuries from mechanical parts. Next slide, please. So many hazards and injuries can result from the use of robots in the workplace. Some robots, notably those in traditional industrial environment, are fast and powerful. These increases the potential for injury, as one swing from a robotic arm, for example, could cause serious bodily harm. There are additional risks when a robot malfunctions or is in need of maintenance. A worker who is working on the robot may be injured because of a malfunctioning robot, which is like typically unpredictable. Let's take an example. A robotic arm that is part of a car assembly line may experience a jammed motor. Okay, and a worker who is trying to fix that jam may suddenly get hit by the arm when the at the moment when the motor gets unjammed. Additionally, if a worker is standing in a zone that is overlapping with nearby robotic arms, he or she might get injured as well by the other moving equipment. I have briefly classified the type of accidents that can occur with the robots. As I've described earlier, impact or collision accidents, crushing and trapping accidents, mechanical part accidents, and other accidents. Impact or collision accidents occur generally from malfunctions and unpredicted change. Crushing and trapping incidents occur when a part of worker's body becomes trapped or caught on a robotic equipment. This comes under the pinch injuries, which is accounted for around 56%. Mechanical part injuries can occur when a robot malfunctions or starts to break down, when the ejection of parts or exposed wire can cause serious injuries. Other accidents are just miscellaneous general accidents that occur from working with the robots. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, so there are 7 sources of hazards that are associated with human interaction with the robots that I would like to describe, and machines. Human errors are one of them. Control errors, unauthorized access, mechanical failures, environmental sources, power systems, and improper installations. Like I said, I would like to mention a small thing about human errors. Human errors could be anything. Like we're not saying about not wearing a boot or shoes. Like everything and anything from one line of incorrect code to a loose bolt of a robotic arm. Many hazards can stem from human-based errors. Okay, from this slide, I would like to discuss about emerging technologies. Emerging technologies can reduce hazards to workers, but can also introduce new hazards, as I mentioned earlier. For example, let's take the robot exoskeletons, which is currently being developed, can be used in a construction to reduce load to the spine. But on the contrary, it has a limitation. It limits the mobility when, say, if an object is falling on you, and then you can't really move. And it also has some serious issues with balance problems. And unmanned aerial vehicles, which is also currently trending, can be used in construction industries to do monitoring and inspections of building and constructions. But there is also serious concern, what if a UAV collision happens and it poses a serious hazard to workers? For collaborative robots, isolation is not possible because it depends on human interaction. Possible hazard controls include collision avoidance system, which works on machine vision to analyze and sense the human presence nearby, and making the robot less stiff to lessen the impact force. Next slide, please. So there are few ways to prevent injuries by implementing hazard controls. Okay, sure. Next slide. Yeah, there are few ways to prevent injuries by implementing hazard controls. There can be risk assessments at each of the various stages of robots development. A risk assessment can help gather information about a robot status, like how well it's being maintained and if repairs are needed soon. By being aware of the status of a robot, injuries can be prevented and hazards can be reduced. Safeguarding devices can be implemented to reduce the risk of injuries, which is shown in the figure. These can include engineering controls such as physical barriers, like guardrails, presence sensing, safeguarding devices. Awareness devices are usually used in conjunction with safeguarding devices. These are usually a system of rope or chain barriers with light signs, whistles, and horns. Their purpose is to be able to alert workers or personnel of certain dangers. Operator safeguards can also be in place. These usually utilize safeguarding devices to protect the operator and reduce risk of injury. Additionally, when an operator is within close proximity of a robot, the working speed of the robot can be reduced to ensure the operator is in full control. This can be done by placing the robot in the manual or teach mode. It is also crucial to inform the programmer of the robot of what type of work the robot is doing, how it will interact with the other robot, and how it will work in relation to the operator. Proper maintenance of robotic equipment is also critical in order to reduce hazards. Maintaining a robot ensures that it continues to properly function, thereby reducing the risk associated with the malfunction. Yeah. So the next slide, please. So
Is it visible?
yeah, so I would like to end it by saying stop accidents before they stop you. Thank you. Now my friend Prabhakar will continue.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Prabhakar. I'm here to present Interlock. This is a very important feature of work cell control that regulates the sequence of activities that are being carried out. Interlocks are essential for the coordinations and synchronization of activity by timing. The interlock allow for variations in the time taken for certain cycles. Interlocks would be used for following to ensure that a raw part was at the pickup location before the robot, and to determine when the machining cycle has been completed before robot load part onto fixture, and to indicate that the part has been successfully loaded so that the auto machining cycle is next slide.
Yeah, I changed it. Is it visible? Hello?
Interlocks are of two types. One is input interlock. Input interlock make use of signals sent from the components in the cell to the controller. They indicate that certain conditions have met and that the programmed work sequence can continue. Example, a limit switch on work fixture can send a signal to indicate that the part has been properly located. And the other one is output interlock, so which makes use of signals sent from the controller to other devices or machines in work cell. Example, an output signal is used to signal the machining center to commence the auto cycle. Signal is continued upon certain conditions being met. Work has been properly loaded, robot gripper has been removed to a safer distance. These conditions are usually determined by means of input interlocks. Next slide. In our example, an output signal is used to signal the machining center to commence the auto cycle. The signal is continued upon certain conditions being met, such as that in designing the work cell, we must not only consider the regular sequence of events during normal operations, but also possible irregularities and malfunctions that could happen. In the regular cycle, the various sequential and simultaneous activities must be identified together with the condition that the potential malfunctions, the applications engineers must determine a method identifying that the malfunction occurred and what action must be taken to respond to that particular malfunction. Both the regular and irregular events in the cycle interlock must be provided to accomplish the required sequence control and hazard monitoring that must occur during the work cell. So in some cases, the interlock signals can be generated by the electronic controllers for the machines. Example like NC machines would be capable of being interfaced to work cell controller to signal completion of auto machining signal. In other cases, the applications engineer must design the interlock using sensors to generate the required signals. And now Kritik will conclude the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk about error detection and recovery. To make a mistake is only human. You all must have come across this proverb. But what about the robots, which are the most advanced creations of human beings, and have the ability to overthrow its very creator? Now, I researched on this topic, and after some days of research, I've come to the conclusion that robots are capable of making errors too. Now, this might be a surprise to all of you, but don't worry, I'm here to teach you or share my knowledge of what I learned with you all now. Okay, so humans make a lot of errors, but what errors do robots do? Okay, so now let's talk about that. Keshav, next slide. Okay, so now here, like as humans, they have classified our sins, right? Our 7 sins. So I have classified errors into 6 different types. So the first one is tooling error. Now, this is actually not exactly a robot error, but this is an error like the tool wears out, or the tool breaks, or the tool is not even present. And so this actually relates to the tool rather than the robot. Now the second is the work part error. Now the work part error happens when the work part is defective, or it's not present, or let's say a wrong work part is in the procedure. Now for the process error, now this relates to the programming or the machining and the other processes in the work cell, and the errors which happen here are things like excessive force or too high temperature, a wrong program, you may say. And now for the fourth one, which is a fixture error, and this error consists of chips causing location errors, part breakage, or dislodging of parts, and also the clamps might have detached from the part. Yeah. Hello. Okay, so now moving on to the machine tool, we have errors like vibration, mechanical failure, thermal deflection, or hydraulic and electrical failure. And electrical failure is not really a robotic failure, but still it comes under errors. So now going on to the last error type, it's robot or end effector error, which consists of improper grasping of work part or loss of accuracy, or the robot just drops the work part during handling, like how humans do. And now we have seen about errors, but how do they detect these errors? I mean, I know you can see if you see a work part by using a naked human eye, you can see or you can detect some errors, but how do robots do it? Can anyone answer this? Can I pick anyone? What about Pradesh Kumar? Can you answer this?
Anyone unmute your mic and answer for the question.
Anyone? Okay, it seems no one has any knowledge about this topic, so don't worry, I'm here for that exact same reason. So now error detection is almost mostly on 99% by sensors. You have lots of sensors. You have heat sensor, you have temperature sensor, you have pressure sensor, you have F/A sensor, you have proximity, acceleration, and light sensors. Now a combination or just a single sensor of one among these is used to detect an error. Now, as let's say we have detected an error, but how do we react to it? If someone commits a crime, then they punish him. But what happens if a robot does an error? So now that topic is called error recovery. Keshav, next slide. Now recovery, there are 4 main types of recovery, which start from low level, less serious errors to very high and operation threatening errors. So first, let's go to adjustments at the end of the current cycle. Now these are a recovery option for errors which are of very low seriousness. Like let's say a robot drops a part. Now you don't need to stop the entire operation to find or search the part in the whole floor and then replace it, but you can just let the operation flow. I mean, you can discard the, you can just let the operation go to the next part. Let's say if, let's take the example of bottling of caps and one cap is missing and it doesn't affect the operation. You just have to discard a bottle after it's filled, but rather than just stopping and then bottling it. Now, the second one is adjustments during current cycle. Now, these are just a little bit more dangerous than the previous ones, but not too much. So what happens is, let's say, for example, let's say there's a gear. A gear is being fabricated. Now, when it part and the gear is now on the next stage of operation, and then it's of higher size. Let's say instead of 5 millimeter, the teeth are 6 millimeter long. Now, for this process, you don't actually need to stop for this error, you don't actually need to stop the process, but you can just input or add an extra bit of code which can machine extra 1 millimeter of the work part so that it comes back to the right shape. Now the third one is stopping a process and invoking the correct algorithm. Now this is like, let's say this is a bit serious. Let's say the process is going on and then the tool breaks. Now you can't do anything unless the tool is replaced, right? So things like tool breakage or let's say the tool becomes blunt. So in these kind of errors, you have to stop the process and then you can replace the tool and then, or you can invoke a corrective algorithm and then you can let the process resume. Now the fourth is the stop process. Now this is when the ultimate species humans come into the picture. So let's say the machine tool just stops working. Something happens, the robot doesn't know what's wrong with it, and it has no way to repair it. So that's when the human, who, let's say a mechanic who probably has a less net worth than the machine he's going to repair, comes in and then he sees he examines the machine and then he tinkers it, and that's it. The machine comes back to working condition and then the process continues. So these are the 4 types or 4 ways of recovery options, and I guess this 2 or 3 minutes has improved your IQ. And now, as this is the last topic in our presentation, our group's presentation does not end here. Kumar will like to conclude. Thank you. Kumar Ritik will like to conclude. Thank you.
Hello. Yes, so I hope you guys got a clear idea about machine interference, multiple robots, and various other terminologies like sequence control, operator interface, interlocks, and at the end, a very creative presentation by at the last on error detection and recovery. And this is us all from my side, and we would like to conclude our presentation, sir. Thank you all for listening, for your patient listening. Thank you.
Is any queries from your side? Any queries with the presentation? Yes, I think there won't be any queries. It was a detailed presentation, and concerning the multi robots and machine interference, it was very fine. It was nice presentation, and my appreciation to the 6th batch fellows. And I think there won't be any queries. Then we'll continue the session with Friday 9:30. Thank you. We'll wind up here. Thank you, Anga.
Thank you.